I used to be terrified of the word empty. I spent 15 years building a version of myself that looked like a fortress from the outside. Money, a title that made people nod with respect, and a schedule so packed I didn't have time to hear my own thoughts. I thought I was winning. I thought the busyness was a sign of significance. I thought the stress was just the price of admission for a life that mattered. Then in the span of 6 months, the fortress didn't just crack, it dissolved. I lost the career I'd identified with, the relationship I thought was my anchor, and the bank account that gave me my sense of safety. I was left with nothing but a quiet room, and the realization that the man I thought I was didn't exist without his things. I sat in that silence for weeks, waiting for the world to end because I had stopped producing. But the sun kept rising, and for the first time in a decade, I could hear my own breathing. It was terrifying. Here is the core truth I had to swallow, and it's the one most people spend their entire lives running from. You will never truly know your own strength until the world takes away everything you used to prop yourself up. We mistake our attachments for our identity. We think we are our job, our house, or our reputation, but those are just costumes. When the stage lights go out and the costumes are stripped away, who is left standing in the dark? That person, the one who remains when the noise stops, is the only version of you that actually matters. That is the version that doesn't need a LinkedIn profile to feel valid. That is the version that doesn't need a partner's approval to feel worthy. It is the raw, unpolished, unbreakable center of your being. Most of us live in a state of constant maintenance. We are janitors of our own ego, sweeping up the crumbs of validation and polishing the trophies of past successes. We do this because we are deathly afraid of the void. We're afraid that if we stop doing, we will cease to be. This is a lie sold to us by a world that profits from our insecurity. The ancients knew better. They understood that the void isn't a hole to be filled, it's a forge. It is the place where the excess is burned away so the steel can be tempered. In the ancient schools of wisdom, they didn't ask, "What have you gained?" They asked, "What have you let go of?" Because they knew that every new attachment was just another potential point of failure. Think about a forest after a fire. It looks like a tragedy. The towering oaks are charred stumps. The canopy that provided shade is gone. The birds have fled, and the ground is covered in grey ash. But if you look closer, weeks later, the soil is richer than it has been in decades. The fire cleared the brush that was choking out new life. It cracked open seeds that require extreme heat to germinate, seeds that would have stayed dormant forever in the comfortable shade of the old trees. Without the destruction, the forest remains stagnant, old and vulnerable to disease. Your life is no different. Sometimes the fire of a major failure or a season of loss is the only thing that can clear the path for the person you are actually meant to become. It is a violent mercy. If you're watching this right now, chances are you're standing in the ashes. Maybe you're grieving a version of your life that didn't pan out. Maybe you're feeling the weight of being behind or the shame of a public mistake. I want you to stop trying to fix it for a second. Stop trying to hustle your way back to where you were. That version of you is gone. He had to die so this new version could breathe. The man who lived in that house, or held that job, or had that reputation, he was a person built on conditions. You are now being invited to become a person built on character. The problem with success is that it makes us soft. It makes us believe we are entitled to the harvest without the winter. We start to think we're smart because things are going well, when really, we might just be lucky. It's only when the luck runs out that the real work begins. This is where you find out if your discipline was real or if it was just a byproduct of being comfortable. This is where you find out if your kindness was a strategy or a character trait. When you are at the top, being good is easy. When you are at the bottom, being good is a choice that defines your soul. I challenge you to do something today that feels counterintuitive. I want you to sit with your loss. Don't scroll away from it. Don't drink it away. Don't try to rebrand it as a win yet. Just sit in the room with the person you are when you have nothing to offer the world. Look at that person in the mirror. If you can find a way to respect the man who has lost everything, you will become a man who can never be truly defeated. Because once you've seen the bottom and realized the ground is solid, you stop fearing the fall. You realize that the worst has already happened and you are still here. That realization is the birth of true freedom. We spend so much energy trying to avoid losing that we never learn how to actually possess ourselves. A man who owns 1,000 acres but is terrified of losing one is a slave to his land. A man who owns nothing but is at peace with his own soul is the only true king. This isn't motivational fluff, it's the physics of the human spirit. Your value is not a variable based on your output. It is a constant, but it's a constant you can only perceive when the variables are removed. The world will try to tell you otherwise. It will try to measure you by your metrics. Ignore it. Your soul doesn't have a spreadsheet. The world will tell you to get back on the horse immediately. I'm telling you to look at why the horse threw you. Maybe you were riding in the wrong direction. Maybe you weren't meant to be a rider at all. The silence that follows a great loss is not an absence of sound. It's the presence of an opportunity to hear the truth. It is the moment when the static of the world fades out and your own internal compass finally gets a clear signal. If you rush back into the noise, you will miss the message. This season of your life isn't a detour. It isn't a mistake. It's the curriculum. You are being stripped of the superficial so you can finally touch the essential. It hurts because you are attached to the mask, but the skin underneath is much tougher than you think. You are being prepared for a weight you couldn't have carried a year ago. You are being refined for a purpose that requires a man who has been through the fire and come out whole. Think of the great leaders of history. Almost none of them had a linear path to the top. They were exiled, imprisoned, bankrupt, or ignored for decades. They spent time in the wilderness, and it was the wilderness that made them. It was the years of being nothing that gave them the substance to be everything when the moment finally called. You are in your wilderness right now. Don't waste it by complaining about the sand. Use it to build the muscles of your spirit. I've met men who have millions and are trembling with fear that it might vanish. I've also met men who have lost it all and are the most peaceful people I know. The difference isn't the bank account, it's the understanding of what is mine and what is borrowed. Everything external is borrowed. Your money, your health, your people, they are all on loan from the universe. The only thing that is truly yours is the quality of your mind and the integrity of your choices. When you realize that, the loss becomes a lot less heavy. Take a moment today to acknowledge the weight you're carrying, but also acknowledge the strength it's taking to hold it. You aren't failing at life, you are experiencing the depth of it. The shallow people stay on the surface where it's safe. You've been pulled into the deep. It's colder here, and it's harder to breathe, but this is where the biggest treasures are hidden. This is where the real growth happens. If you're the one this is for, you know it. You've been waiting for permission to stop pretending you're okay and start being real. The fortress is gone. Good. Now you can finally see the horizon. Now you can finally see the path that was hidden by the walls you built. Take one step, then another. The person you are becoming is much more interesting than the person you were.